President Trump set to arrive in New York City tonight ahead of his speech at the UN General Assembly tomorrow. A major point of contention will be the global response to the Israel-Hamas war, especially after several Western nations, Canada, Australia, the UK, and Portugal, decided this weekend to recognize a Palestinian state. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sending a clear message in response, saying, quote, "To those leaders who recognize a Palestinian state after a horrific massacre of October 7th, you're giving a huge reward to terrorism." Joining me now, former State Department Deputy Special Envoy to combat anti-Semitism, an Iranian refugee, Ellie Cohanim. Ellie, how do you see this? Because there is a growing sentiment in the U.S. even about what is happening in with the innocents who are not part of Hamas. And how do you kind of walk that line? And I'll just quote from a Walter Russell Mead piece that is in the Wall Street Journal. And he said, "The Western leaders who flaunt their self-perceived moral purity as they condemn Israel forget the foundation on which they stand. Today's liberal, rules-based Western order is the product of a far bloodier history than anything Israelis have done or even could do in Gaza."
Dagan, it's good to be with you, and I appreciate the question that you're raising. And President Trump, as you know, will be speaking at the United Nations tomorrow, where these Western countries that have decided they're going to unilaterally recognize some sort of a Palestinian state without any borders, without a leader, without a capital. The president is going to address this group tomorrow. And what we've heard from the White House is that President Trump will be taking on multilateral organizations like the United Nations that don't represent American interests and really represent more our adversaries' interests. And also he will be talking about American strengths. In terms of Israel and the Gaza war, let's remember that it was Hamas that attacked Israel on October 7th and committed untold atrocities. President Trump has spoken over and over again about seeing the footage of the atrocities committed on October 7th. And so we know that there is no way that Hamas can be rewarded with a Palestinian state as a result of October 7th. And that's exactly what some of our European allies are proposing to do. We also heard from our incoming ambassador to the United Nations, newly sworn in Ambassador Mike Waltz, that he is going to be holding the UN accountable. He's going to make sure the United Nations also brings more of America first and represents more American interests at the UN, and also that he will be holding them accountable for their obsessive anti-Semitism at the United Nations. So I think, Dagan, that's a lot of what we can expect to see at the UN, both tomorrow and over the coming months.
Every time they have this UN General Assembly, I always wonder why they have not turned that giant building into a bunch of condominiums. Because a lot of these representatives from other nations, they just come here to shop and do drugs, quite frankly. But you mentioned Hamas, and this is a Fox exclusive I want to get your reaction to, that Hamas has made a pitch to President Trump, a 60-day pause in fighting for half the hostages. What are they up to, this terror group?
They're up to no good. And President Trump has made clear to Hamas over and over again that he wants all the hostages released right now. He wants them released in one grouping. He's not interested in this trickle hostage release that Hamas has been doing over the course of 2 years now. And also, President Trump is not interested in any kind of a ceasefire of what Hamas is asking for right now, which basically gives them the opportunity to rearm and strengthen themselves. We are well overdue for this war to wrap up, and the only way that the war wraps up, the president, this administration has demanded over and over again that Hamas must release all the hostages immediately. They must disband and disarm. And Dagan, what's interesting is that we've also heard this from the Arab League. Even the Arab League has demanded that Hamas must disband. There's no future for Gaza with a role for Hamas. And as President Trump would say, Hamas does not hold the cards. So they are well overdue to accept certain Witkoff proposals that have been brought to them in the past, and let Gaza move on. Let the people of Gaza, those innocent civilians that you were referring to earlier, let them move on to a better life.
Ellie Cohanim, thank you so much. Great to see you.